What would you do if, on the very day you celebrated love and life, you discovered the deepest betrayal? Stay with me, because this story of heartbreak, courage, and an unexpected twist will leave you breathless until the very end. Asterisk before we begin this incredible story. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon, so you never miss our powerful and life-changing content. Asterisk title on 7th anniversary. I went for a prenatal checkup, but my husband was sleeping with mistress, so it was supposed to be a day of joy. Our 7th wedding anniversary. The morning sunlight fell gently across the curtains. I placed my hand on my growing belly, feeling the tiny flutter of life inside me, every heartbeat. Within me was a promise of a future filled with love. I dressed carefully, choosing a soft blue dress that stretched over my stomach. I wanted to look radiant. Not for the world, but for my husband, the man I believed was my safe place. At the clinic, the doctor smiled kindly. The sound of the baby's heartbeat filled the room. Steady and strong, tears welled up in my eyes. Tears of gratitude, of hope, of anticipation. I left the clinic holding the ultrasound picture. Close to my chest, my heart raced with excitement, as I imagined surprising him with the news of our baby's health on this special day. I walked faster, almost running, carrying the picture like a secret treasure. When I reached home, the house was quiet, too quiet. I tiptoed inside, expecting him to jump out with flowers or laughter, some surprise he had hidden from me. Instead, I heard faint whispers. Low, soft voices. I froze. The voices grew clearer as I moved down the hallway. And then I heard laughter. A woman's laughter. It felt like the ground beneath me shifted, like my heart cracked with every step I took. I opened the bedroom door. There he was, the man I had trusted with my life, the man who had promised forever. And in his arms, another woman. My anniversary dress suddenly felt too tight. My hands trembled. The ultrasound picture slipped from my fingers and floated to the floor. The room grew cold. Though the sun still streamed through the window, my ears rang with silence. Even though they spoke words I did not want to hear. I stood there, a storm inside my chest, yet I felt no tears, only a strange calm, like the world had stopped spinning. He looked at me, startled, his face pale. She turned away, adjusting her clothes, pretending not to exist. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. This was not about what I had lost. It was about what I was about to protect. The little life inside me, the dignity I carried, the strength I had yet to discover. He stammered my name. His voice shook, as if guilt had stolen the air from his lungs. I did not respond. I only bent down and picked up the ultrasound picture from the floor. My fingers brushed against the crumpled edge, as if I was rescuing something fragile and sacred. I placed it against my heart, holding it tightly, so it would not slip again. He tried to speak words of excuse, words of regret, but they sounded empty, like echoes bouncing inside a hollow shell. The woman slipped past me, her perfume lingering in the room like poison. The door clicked shut behind her, and I was left with him and the truth. I turned toward the window. The sunlight that had felt so warm in the morning now seemed harsh, blinding. I wondered if the universe was testing me, or perhaps reminding me that love without respect is not love at. I finally looked at him. His face was full of fear, not for me, but for himself. His eyes searched mine for forgiveness. But forgiveness is not a gift one demands. It is a gift one earns. I walked out of the room. My steps were heavy, but with each step I felt lighter because I carried more than heartbreak. I carried hope. And responsibility. And an unborn child who deserved a mother strong enough to face the storm. I sat on the couch in the living room. My body trembled, but my soul whispered, "You are not broken. You are becoming." I called my sister. Her voice was the thread that stitched my shaking heart back together. "I am coming," she said. Without hesitation, without questions. Minutes later, she arrived, she wrapped me in her arms, and for the first time that day, I let the tears fall. They came like rain, washing away the weight I had been holding. Her embrace was steady, strong, unshakable. And I realized, even in betrayal, even in abandonment, I was not alone. My sister held my hand the whole evening. She brewed tea, though neither of us drank it. It sat on the table, steam curling into the air, a quiet witness to my silence. I stared at the ultrasound picture again. My child. My future, my reason. I promised myself then, no matter how broken I felt, I would never let my child feel unloved or unwanted. My sister looked at me, her eyes glistening with both anger and compassion. "You do not deserve this," she whispered. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she squeezed mine. I knew she wanted to fight my battles for me, but this was mine to fight. Later that night, he called me again, and again. Each ring echoed in the small apartment like a demand. I refused to answer. The sound of it reminded me of chains I was ready to break. By the third call, my sister muted the phone. "Rest," she said softly. But rest did not come easily. I lay awake, watching the ceiling, every crack in the plaster telling me a story of survival. When morning arrived, I made a decision. I packed a small bag, clothes, documents, the ultrasound photo carefully tucked between the pages of a book. I stood in front of the mirror. My eyes were swollen, my face pale, but there was something new there. Strength, not the loud kind, not the kind that shouts, but the quiet strength of a woman who has walked through fire and still chooses to walk forward. My sister drove me to the clinic that day. The doctor smiled as he placed the cold gel on my stomach. And then there it was. The sound, the heartbeat. Fast, strong. The rhythm of life itself. Tears rolled down my face again, but this time, they were not from pain, they were from love. From hope, from a promise. I whispered silently to that tiny heartbeat, "You and I will be fine." The doctor handed me a new picture. I held it close, closer than anything else I owned, and in that moment, I realized my story was not ending. It was just beginning. When I stepped outside the clinic that morning, the sunlight felt different. It was brighter, warmer, almost as if the world itself whispered, "You are not alone." My sister walked beside me, her presence steady, her silence comforting. We did not speak much on the drive back, but every mile that passed felt like another wall, falling away from around my heart. I glanced at the small ultrasound photo, resting on my lap. My future was looking back at me. Not in words. Not in promises, but in that tiny shape, that fragile heartbeat etched into the grainy paper. I clutched it as though it were the most precious jewel. And to me, it was. When we arrived home, I noticed a small package waiting by the door. It was from him, a box, carefully wrapped with my name written in his familiar handwriting. For a moment, my hands shook. I thought about throwing it away, but curiosity held me still. Inside was a necklace, not new, the very one I had once, treasured and worn on our anniversaries. He had taken it from me during one of those arguments where silence screamed louder than words, and now he sent it back. Almost as if he wanted to erase the memory of the night before, but I could not be bought back. I placed the necklace in a drawer, not out of anger, but out of closure. It no longer carried love. It carried lessons, and those were heavier than gold. Later that day, I sat by the window, pen and notebook in hand. I began writing. Not letters to him, not words of bitterness, but dreams for my child. A list of things I wanted us to do. The places I wanted us to see. The kind of love I promised myself to give. Each word I wrote stitched me together. Again. Each plan gave me a reason to breathe deeper, to smile, even if faintly. To believe in tomorrow. Days turned into weeks, and my routine became a gentle rhythm. Morning tea by the window, a walk through the garden, and at night, quiet talks with the life growing inside me. I whispered promises into the stillness. Promises I intended to keep. Then, one afternoon, there was a knock on my door. I knew the rhythm of that knock. Slow, hesitant, as if weighed down by guilt. I opened the door, and there he was. His eyes were swollen, dark circles painting the mistakes of his sleepless nights in his hand. He held a single white rose that it looked fragile, just like him. For a moment we stood in silence. He tried to speak, but his lips trembled, his voice faltered. Finally, he whispered my name, not with authority, not with the confidence of the man I once knew, but with the helplessness of someone who had lost what truly mattered. I let him in, not out of forgiveness, but because I wanted to hear the truth. He sat at the table, his head lowered, his hands clasped tightly, as though in prayer. Then he confessed, every detail, every regret. He told me about the emptiness he felt after I walked away, about how he searched for meaning in someone else's arms, but found nothing but shame. His words were heavy, but they no longer shattered me. I listened. Steady, because by then, I had already begun to heal. I touched the ultrasound photo resting on the table beside me and quietly said, "This is my reason now." His eyes filled with tears as he looked at it, and for the first time in years, I saw him break not from anger, not from pride, but from sorrow. He reached across the table, his fingers trembling, as if the photograph held the weight of all his regrets. "I lost everything the day I betrayed you," he whispered, his voice cracked. Raw and stripped of every mask he once wore, he begged me for forgiveness. He begged me for another chance. His tears fell freely, dripping onto the table, leaving small stains of sorrow. But I did not cry. Not this time. I had shed too many tears already, and each one had watered the soil of my new strength. I took a deep breath, steady and clear. "Do you know what betrayal does?" I asked softly. He lifted his head, his eyes searching mine. "Desperate. It does not just break love," I continued. "It breaks trust. And without trust, love has no place to live." His lips quivered. His hands clenched together tightly. "I will do anything," he said, his voice almost childlike. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I felt no anger, no hatred, only a deep sense of distance, as though he had already drifted too far away to ever return. I placed my hand gently on my stomach. My child deserves peace. My child deserves a strong mother who knows her worth. And I deserve a life where love means respect. His shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him like air escaping a broken balloon. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was not painful for me anymore. It was freedom. I stood up, and as I walked to the door, he slowly rose too. He stopped in the doorway, his head bowed low. For a long moment, he stood there, as if hoping I would call him back, but I did not. Instead, I whispered gently, "Go find the man you lost when you chose lies over love. My path no longer walks beside yours." Months later, I held my newborn in my arms, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and in that moment I understood true love is not always what we expect, but what we choose to nurture. I chose strength. I chose peace. I chose a future where trust, respect, and kindness were the foundation of love. Life had tested me with betrayal, but it rewarded me with resilience. And in my child's eyes, I saw a love that was pure and unbreakable. The truth is, people may hurt us. They may fail us, but their choices do not define who we are. What defines us is how we rise, how we heal, and how we carry love forward, not just for others, but for ourselves. The moral of this story is simple. Betrayal breaks bonds, but self-respect builds bridges to a better life. Never forget your worth, because love without respect is not love at all. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt tale. If it moved you, share it, comment below, and remember, thank you for listening to this heartfelt tale. If it touched you, please share it. Leave a comment below and remind someone you are never alone.